Good evening, everyone. Before we start, we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq First Nation. So I have called to order, and just as a reminder from yesterday evening, I'm pleased to pledge my support today for the Moose Hide Campaign, an Indigenous-led reconciliation movement that calls upon Canadians to stand together to end violence against women and children. Today I pledge to take a stand against gender-based violence, and I encourage everyone to do the same and visit moosehidecampaign.ca to find ways you can get involved. So, any declarations of conflicts? Seeing none. On the agenda, we have two items. 4A, 126 Rochford Street, and B, housekeeping amendments that pertain to the following sections of the zoning and development bylaw. Moved by Councillor Matart, second by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor? Okay. So, we have two applications, one application that starts off, 126 Rochford Street. Jeff Gibson is here. Jeff and CG Law, that's one and the same. David Gundrum is our staff. He's the manager of planning and development, and he is participating virtually, so he'll be speaking to it. As for the housekeeping amendments in 4B, related to zoning and development bylaw, Donna Miller-Ayton, manager of policy and heritage, she will carry that as part of the agenda. As you can see, this is Councillor Brack. How are you, sir? So as you can see, this is a live stream meeting, and if you do want to see it after tonight's gathering, you can just go to our YouTube, City of Charlottetown, and it'll be archived there in our YouTube channel. Councillors that are here tonight, Councillor Mitchell-Twill, Councillor McCabe, Councillor Beck just arrived, Councillor Matart, I have Councillor McAleer and Deputy Mayor Alana Yankoff. I think we have one of our planning board members in the audience, and that's Bob Kenny, and that's all I see. And I'm going to turn it now over to the deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome, everybody. So any of you folks that may not have participated in these public meetings before, I'll just briefly kind of go over the housekeeping rules and what you will expect. So there'll be a brief presentation by staff and then the applicant. From there, the presentation, the general public will be given an opportunity to speak. And we ask that each participant is mindful of their time and they try and keep it within the 5 minutes. And we also ask if you just state your name and if you're from Charlottetown, it's more for the public record, if you don't mind. After that, councillors will be allowed to ask questions of clarity, but being very mindful to not offer opinions on the project, as we must remain neutral until the process is completed. Other than that, I'm sure we all know to just be respectful here in the chamber and really anywhere for that matter. You may or may not like what somebody else is presenting, but we're all given that opportunity to share our thoughts this evening. And other than that, anyone that doesn't want to speak this evening or doesn't have an opportunity or gets home and wants to add additional information, you do have until Thursday noon to submit any additional written submissions. And I will now turn it back over to His Worship, Mayor Brown. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Deputy. So I'm going to call on David Gundrum, who is our Manager of Planning and Development, to start off the process. And David, are you ready to go?
I am, Your Worship, and you can hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Is that from Wheatley
Great.
River?
No, out Kensington way.
Okay, okay. We
Yeah.
have to get you
Yeah.
moving into Charlottetown. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just share a screen to the presentation for the application at this point. And I'll just switch to the slideshow here. Can everybody see that okay? Great. So the following application is an application for a site-specific exemption request to the zoning bylaw to permit a office use, being a law office, as a principal use at 126 Rochford Street, PID number 345744. Subject property is located on the east side of Rochford Street, north of the intersection with Fitzroy Street, as per the aerial image on the screen. And subject property is located in Ward number 1, Queen Square Ward in the city of Charlottetown. So again, this is an application for a site-specific exemption to the zoning and development bylaw to allow for an office use, specifically a law office, to be permitted as a main principal use on the subject property located at 126 Rochford Street, PID number 345744. The property is located in the 500 lot area, being located south of Euston Street. It is within the downtown neighborhood zone. It's also designated as downtown neighborhood in the city's official plan. And the subject property contains an existing single detached dwelling, which is a designated heritage building, as well as an accessory shed in the rear yard, as shown on the image on the screen. The following are concept floor plans for the proposed use that the applicant has provided as part of their application. Again, it's a two-story dwelling located on the subject property with a attic that you could call a third floor, but it's not a usable space. Approximately 120 square meters, or 1,292 square feet, are proposed to be utilized as office space on the first and second floors of the existing dwelling, which is approximately 32% of the total floor area of the dwelling, which would be dedicated as office space for the principal office use that's proposed. Subject property again is located within the downtown neighborhood zone. As per section 5.9 of the zoning bylaw, an office use is permitted, however, only as a home occupation, being limited in size and being accessory to a principal residential use on the property, i.e. a single detached dwelling. Consideration of a site-specific exemption is required in this instance, as the proposal would exceed the existing permissions and limitations that otherwise permit an office use in the downtown neighborhood zone, albeit only as an accessory home occupation use on the site, as per the home occupation regulations of the zoning bylaw. So just a overview of the subject property. The lot meets the minimum lot frontage and lot area requirements of the zone which it is located within, the downtown neighborhood zone. The existing main structure, being a single detached dwelling, is within the maximum permitted building height and meets all required setbacks from property boundaries as per the downtown neighborhood zone. Minimum required dimension for a parking space is 2.6 meters by 5.5 meters in length. Based on this minimum requirement, the existing physical driveway could accommodate enough on-street parking for up to 3 vehicles as legal parking spaces as per the dimensions in the zoning and development bylaw. Based on the amount of office space which is proposed, again 120 square meters or 1,292 square feet, a total of 3 parking spaces would be required as per the parking provisions of the zoning bylaw. The proposed change of use would have the effect of removing an established residential use from the site and replacing it with an occupational use. This change would not challenge the prevailing residential character of the surrounding area in terms of the physical streetscape or built form. From a physical and streetscape perspective, the preservation of the existing streetscape as it appears today through the change of use would not diminish the prevailing residential character of the existing structure. Legislative requirements, just a quick overview. As per section 3.10.4 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, on April the 9th, City Council approved a request to proceed to public consultation for the application. Thereafter, on May 1st, 2024, a written notification letter was sent to all property owners located within 100 meters or 328 feet of the boundaries of the subject property to notify them of the request. A total of 51 letters were sent to residents advising them of the public meeting tonight to request their response and comments to the application. As of tonight's meeting, a total of 4 written responses have been received, 1 in support, 2 in opposition, and 1 deemed as neutral regarding the application. So the next steps following tonight's evening meeting rather, it would be a collection of the public feedback from this evening's meeting, as well as all written feedback that's been received to date, and up to and including noon tomorrow on being May 16th. A report and recommendation will be provided to the planning board at their next regular meeting on June 4th, and then subsequent to that, a recommendation will be forwarded to council at their next regular meeting on June 11th for consideration. So that is a summary of the application and the request and the next steps in the process, and I'll turn it back over to the chair and happy to answer any questions that members of the council or members of the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So we will open the floor. The mic is there. This is being recorded. And as I said, it will be live stream on YouTube. For presentations, 5 minutes to speak to the issue. Please just give your name. If you want to give an address, you can just say Charlottetown, Sherwood, East Raleigh, Cornwall, wherever. That's all we need to know. And the mic is now open. Does the proponent wish to speak?
Good evening, Your Worship. Darren Peters. I live at 139 Roxford Street. And I begin my comments tonight by expressing condolences on behalf of myself to Councillor Beck on the recent loss of your brother, a hero to many of us, and someone who will be remembered for a very, very long time for his wonderful work and acts of kindness. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of the Reeser family here tonight. We are still mourning on Roxford Street the loss of Alan Reeser, such an outstanding member of our community and a beloved member of Roxford Street. I will keep my comments brief. Simply to acknowledge that 79 years ago today, on May 15, 1945, my late father, was born at 26 Spring Street. He skinned his knees on Roxford Street. He skated on the pond behind my home. And his grandmother, Priscilla McKinnon, lived in the corner of Churchill Avenue and Spring Street, where she had 7 proud sons and 1 daughter. All of those 7 sons served in active duty in World War II. So it's not an understatement to say that my blood has been walking the streets of Roxford for well over 100 years. And I come here tonight wishing no ill will to any party, as a matter of fact, simply just to express my concerns in this forum on the potential change in use of such a beloved home in Charlottetown. Those of us who live on our part of Roxford Street work very hard on our properties. We work very hard to come together as a community and to be contributing members of the city of Charlottetown. Would we love 126 Roxford Street to remain a family home, a residential home? Absolutely and unequivocally. Do I relish the thought of waking up in the morning and looking out at a law office? I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to face a law office every morning when they get out of bed. But that being said, I simply want to express my concern with the concept of spot zoning and changing the use provisions for valuable homes, especially in a time of housing crisis, especially in a time when we have a downtown core that is struggling and that is having significant issues with getting people to the downtown, getting people there for commerce. I will close my comments in simply saying that in a perfect world, 126 Rochford Street would continue to be a family home. I thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
My name is Ian Scott, and I'm a resident of Charlottetown. And I want to thank Darren for being Darren. I think he captured the sense of what a community is. And a community is really people. You know, we heard the words that it's not going to affect the residential character of the house, whether it's a law office or whether it's a family home. I take exception to that because I believe that houses can be more than just houses. They can be homes. And homes are what form our neighborhoods. I'm here because representing my grandchildren. They can't be here tonight. It's past their bedtime. And you can guess who drew the short straw of putting them to bed tonight. So I'm not doing bedtime duty. I'm here to represent their interests. They are the fourth generation to live in the house that is adjacent to this property. They were the side yard neighbors of the Reeser family. And they are 10th generation Islanders who have appreciated a neighborhood. They play with neighbors in their block. They are part of a community. I want to thank Council for the opportunity to be able to speak and to respond to this proposal. I think we are really, really blessed to be able to live in a community that is based on laws to protect us, and a chance to respond when those laws are about to be changed. Like most families, family home is often their biggest investment. It's an investment that's made with a clear understanding that the neighborhood, when it is zoned as a neighborhood, as a residential area, they will have the protection that zoning provides, except when spot zoning is allowed, which is why we are here tonight. Spot zoning leads to erosion of neighborhoods, the neighborhood qualities, and of residential values. When commercial intrusion is allowed in a residential area. Thus, we have zoning laws to protect neighborhoods. We have learned over time, at one time we had no zoning. We have learned as a community that it is essential to keep residential zoned areas intact. I've seen it just in the generations of how blocks, 5 generations ago, we had family living on the block across the street. There's not a single person living on that block anymore. For 3 generations, we had family that lived on this block. There's not one person that lives on this block anymore. So the remaining residential blocks and neighborhoods of this city have withstood the eroding effect of commercialization, and they have survived because of the efforts of individuals. And I ask for your support in supporting those individuals in preserving the remnant residential areas of this town, especially the ones south of Euston, where commercial intrusion is most felt. Being a designated heritage property, which is the home that our grandchildren live in, various owners over the generations, including my wife and myself when we owned it, invested a considerable amount to comply with heritage regulations, and were pleased when our daughter and son-in-law saw that it was a suitable spot to continue to invest and to raise a family. Money aside, it is those kids at home sleeping who will awaken into a world that our elected officials create when spot zoning is allowed to deprive them of the neighborhoods their parents, their grandparents, and their great-grandparents fought to preserve. I assume that's my 5-minute mark. Neighborhoods require neighbors, and family neighborhoods that have children removed from them lack the vital aspect that brings lifelong friends from growing up in neighborhoods. My own kids are still best friends with the kid across the street and the kid across the back fence. They were the people they played ball with in the backyard, built rinks with, played hoops in the driveway. I urge you to resist spot zoning in this location and keep this block protected as a residential area. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Am I good to go whenever?
Your name and just,
Sure. Name is Melanie Johnston. I live on the Rochford block that this affects. I think one thing that hasn't been commented on yet, and the people that have spoken before me have made light that when you come to this neighborhood, you stay a long time, and we are also a testament of that. We have been in this house for 100+ years. We like our neighbors, and there's a lot of emotion coming from this. I think that one thing that hasn't been commented on, there was a point made in the presentation, is unless you live in this area, you don't really have an appreciation for the difficulties that we face with parking, even as a residential area. So we are adjacent to the provincial buildings. We have multiple employees that utilize the uninhibited parking there as their daily parking when they go to work. With the inn on the corner of Euston, they do not have enough parking spots to meet for the number of units that they have. So in the summertime, that parking overflow goes onto our street. We have faced issues in my house specifically, unfortunately, with a family member with Alzheimer's whom we needed respite care for. And home care had difficulty finding parking at times where they said they didn't know if they could come to give respite that day because there wasn't enough parking on the block. And that is without a commercial property there. It's nice to say that there's parking for 3 places. We didn't have the details as to how many employees would be there, as to how many clerks, how many lawyers, and that's just the staffing, let alone the clients coming in and needing to have accessible parking to get there. This is an issue that we have faced for a number of years now, and it just needs to be made light of that that's also a consideration on this block, is parking is not always easy. And if residential parking spots were to be assigned to that, that would take offense to some of us who have been advocating for that for other own residential personal reasons.
thank you.
My name's Alan Holman. I am one of the 2 letters that oppose this change to the downtown zoning, residential downtown zoning. Ms. Johnson touched on one of my concerns, and that is the issue of parking. 3 parking spots is all that's available under the way that the property is laid out now. As was mentioned, there's very little parking available in that area because of the civil servants that utilize the street for parking. And not just civil servants, but people that were going to the provincial building also utilize the space for parking. We, as was mentioned, weren't told how many lawyers or how big a staff there is. But lawyers are like all businesses. They don't usually start a business to stay at the same level of service that they provide when they begin. Most businesses expect to expand and want to expand. And I think if you allow this property to become a law office, it will not be very long before you'll have a request to plow down the front yard for additional parking. Because the business will, if it's any good at all, will want to expand. And there's nowhere else for it to possibly put parking. The backyard is almost minuscule. There might be room for one more car there. So that's a concern of mine. I'm also very concerned about the precedent you're setting. If you approve this change in zoning, it will be very difficult for any council in the future to refuse a similar request that's likely to come every time a property goes up for sale. So I don't think you should be changing the downtown zoning on a piecemeal basis. If you wish to change the downtown residential zoning, then you should do that in terms of looking at the whole of the downtown zone. I would oppose any changes, but if you're going to make changes, you shouldn't do it higgly-piggly. It should be done as a part of the overall city plan, not one property at a time. So I am very opposed to this, and I certainly hope that council will consider all of the opposition that's being expressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. You go ahead, Mr. Gibson. Go ahead. Just state your name, where you live. Yeah.
My name is Jeff Gibson, so please don't throw anything at me. I would like to, I don't have a presentation planned.
It's Mr. Jeff Gibson. He's the proponent.
Apologies, yes,
And-
Jeff Gibson, proponent of the application. Yeah.
Right. And living where? In Charlottetown or just,
I live in Hunter River.
that's all right. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hunter River. Hunter River. So I give you a little bit of my background as well here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to change anyone's mind on anything. I just want to give a little bit more explanation of where I'm coming from and the plans that I have. To be honest, actually listening to what you some say, I get up and argue in court fairly regularly. The arguments and the way that they've been advanced superior probably to a lot of what I have to deal with on a weekly basis. So commendations those who've put forward their positions. I do live in Hunter River. I've been resident of PEI about 15 years, 14 years. The majority of that time I've been working in the downtown area. I work for a small to medium-sized law firm in downtown Charlottetown, corner of Queen Street and Water Street. Goes by the name of Campbell Lee. I'm one of the partners with the firm there. I've been a partner with the firm about 5 or 6 years. I'm now planning on moving out on my own. Thank you. I'm planning on moving out on my own and starting my own practice. And it's going to be it's a small setup. We're not talking about something which is something to rival the Cox and Palmers and Stuart McKelveys of the city here. This is going to be a small, very much local practice. My practice areas are primarily in residential real estate, corporate commercial work, wills and estate planning. I work mostly with families, small businesses, a lot of senior clients doing estate planning and the like. I do appear in court, but the majority of my work is what we call solicitor work, helping clients complete transactions and the like. And that's what I'm planning on continuing doing when I'm going out by myself. At this time, there were a number of points were raised there. Mr. Holman, Ian, sorry, I didn't catch your second name there. We don't know how many lawyers are going to be there. At the moment, I can tell you that my plans are to have 1 to 2 other lawyers. At the moment, I have one other person signed up, and I'm looking for someone else to join me. So I'm looking at having 3 lawyers. and at the moment there's 2 staff. The maximum that would ever grow within both my business plans and the limitations of that specific building are, you know, maybe 4, another couple of staff members. Maximum occupancy, therefore, during working hours would be, in the future, if everything's successful, 6, 7, 8 people. We're certainly not talking about something that's a sizable enterprise. So let me touch briefly on a very specific point that was raised laterally there by Ms. Johnson and others as well, Mr. Holman, in relation to parking. I personally, as I said, I live in Hunter River. I already work downtown Charlottetown. I am a regular user of our improving transit service. I come by bus regularly into town. Of those who I know are joining me, there are you know, two people that I know are joining me are within walking distance of that specific property, and there at the moment only one person I anticipate joining me would be travelling here by vehicle. I'm not sure. I did chuckle and didn't take great offence with Mr. Peters' comment. Who wants to wake up looking at a law office? You know, I wake up and look at a law office every morning. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. It doesn't look any different. Yeah, that's a point I'm coming to, actually. It's not going to look any different. But in terms of the kind of coming and going, my current workplace in Campbell-Lee is a fairly busy place. And if you're imagining something like a doctor's surgery, where you're getting clients, appointments coming every 5-10 minutes, that's not what this looks like in a law office. We work long hours, but not very much of that work in practice is with face-to-face meetings. I would have on the average week, personally, I would have maybe 10 in-person appointments if there are 2 or 3 lawyers. You know, so that's the numbers that we're talking about here. 20 maximum, sort of 30 appointments. That's 5 or 6 per day maximum that we're talking about visits and people that are coming. So when you're looking at the impact on the parking situation, I'd suggest it's fairly negligible. I'm not going to pretend that I'm certainly not going to discount your concerns in relation to parking or anything else. I come downtown every day, whether by bus or by vehicle. I'm very cognizant of the parking issues there. One of the particular aspects of this property, which is attractive for me, is it does have off-street parking, which is limited, obviously, in the downtown area, as you all know. It will accommodate sort of 3 parking spaces, and that's something that's unusual for a property in the downtown area, and very welcome for what I want to do. I would say the chance of all 3 of those parking spaces being used at any one time are probably fairly slim, and let alone sort of overflow parking. So, you know, could I guarantee that no one will ever be driving around the block fighting with government workers for one of the few parking spots? No, I can't guarantee that, but I think the impact is maybe not what, you know, your worst fears may indicate. That's in relation to parking. In relation to sort of general points about the nature of the neighbourhood, and listen a lot to what you're saying. This is really important to me. I personally, I live in Hunter River. I live in a heritage home. You know, I live in that community with my family, and I'll be honest with you. Some of the points that you made, I've not been looking at it that way. I've been looking at it my business. I realise this is a family home, and to hear the comments that you're making, I'm taking that on board. I'm not going to walk out of here and say I'm withdrawing my application, but I certainly hear where you're coming from, being in a similar situation, living in an older home in a community myself. One of the, a few things that I would say in relation to that are...
Mr. Gibson, can you just compress a little bit? You're a little over time now. It's
okay.
5 minutes. So
as a proponent, perhaps I could...
yeah,
provide
you're
a
still
little
allowed
extra
5 minutes.
courtesy.
It's 5 minutes. That's the max.
May I suggest
Unless
that-
council wishes to waive that, I think we should just, being fair to the speakers already, can you wrap it up in a minute, 2 minutes?
I would argue respectfully, I'm in a little bit of a different position from people.
Oh, I know you
bringing
are.
Their
Yeah,
concerns.
you're the
I'm the one
proponent.
advancing the application. And I was advised that I would be given the opportunity to make a presentation this
Yeah.
evening, and so I'm availing myself of that opportunity because I won't have another one.
Yeah,
So-
it states here 5 minutes for the presentation. I think that was read out now. If council wishes to provide a little more time, I think we have to provide a little more time to the residents also. Continue.
If you could give me another couple of minutes,
Yeah,
that would
go
be
ahead.
greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
So, this area, talking about the tone of the neighbourhood, it is in practice, it's a mixed-use area already. There are significant, obviously, a number of residential homes. On Rochford Street alone, there are general commercial use properties. There's obviously half of Rochford Street is a government building. There's a church, the dental office, clinic. There's a number of, just across the road, there's a number of inns and motels and sort of short-term accommodation uses already. These things are already in the neighbourhood. Within the surrounding 100 metres, maybe 200 metres, there are 2 other law offices, of which you may not even be aware. This is not a high-impact use on the neighbourhood. And I would suggest as well, and I could go on about this, but I realise the time is short, that the presence of a law office, a small professional business within this area, is not inconsistent either with the way the surrounding area is used, or maybe even the way that it should be used. You know, I believe in working, you know, with local people. I've committed myself to working here. I work with people in the local area, and I love working with people. The closer they are, the better, and I love working with people in surrounding areas. And I think the presence of a neat, good-looking, because the appearance is really important for a lawyer's office, a good-looking professional office in the midst of a residential community is not inconsistent. You know, I heard the word sort of commercialization. We're not talking about a mall here. We're not talking about a significant commercial development. We're talking about something which is, going to be harmonious with the neighborhood. In fact, I would say you'd barely notice, that it's going to be there, and it's going to have no noticeable impact on the community. My apologies for running over. I just wanted to get some of those points across.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gibson.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just state your name, where you live.
Andrea Battison, Charlottetown. So, start my timer. So briefly, I'd certainly support a lot of the comments that have been heard already. This is a downtown neighborhood zone, and we're in the middle of a housing crisis, which we hear repeatedly. So converting a property which is already set up for residential use into what sounding like commercial just seems to be counterintuitive to all the other actions the city's been taking. And there's also a lot of unused empty space in the downtown core. Kent and Great George is an example of a corner space that's been empty except for seasonal displays since the day it was renovated. And empty storefronts in the downtown core speak very poorly to the downtown vitality. And so it again seems counterintuitive if the city was to allow a site-specific exemption for this property if you're trying to increase the downtown core. I now have 2 questions that I hope either staff or council could ask. One of them is, if this is a site-specific exemption, my understanding is that will sit with the property, not the current use. Is that correct or not?
Good question. David, did you hear that question? Are you still with us, David?
Through your worship, I did. To answer Ms. Battison's question accurately, she's correct. The site-specific exemption, if it's passed by council and put in place, would carry with the property indefinitely. So it'd be an additional permission that would run with the property regardless of ownership of the property.
Okay, thank you. And
Second question?
the second question is, this is different from a non-conforming use, so if it wasn't used for this use for more than 6 months, it would not automatically revert to downtown neighborhood. Is that correct?
Mr. Gundram?
Through your worship, that is correct. It would not have an expiry date. It would be an additional permission that would exist indefinitely, and would
Forever
run
and
with
day.
run with the property, yeah.
Okay.
If I could go back to my 5 minutes, thanks for those. So what I'm seeing here is when you have this very specific zoning, it could easily morph into something more intensely commercial. It's perhaps a thin edge of a wedge, which seems to be in contrary to what a lot of the residents are saying. And I can appreciate the current proponent and their statement that it's going to be very low intensity, but I think the significance and the ramifications of a site-specific exemption need to be considered here. It's a forever change until there's another forever change to change it back. And so for that reason, I would be against doing that as requested. If I could also just make a couple of comments regarding notification. I understand letters went out to residents within 100 meters May 1st, and a couple notices appeared in the paper. However, when you went to the website indicated in the notice papers, there was nothing there even up to Monday at about 8:30 p.m. So it's really hard for an engagement process if you're trying to get people involved, if you send them to a website location that has no information for them to look at and try to understand and appreciate. I'm not sure when it showed up on the website. It was there this morning. And so, you know, I don't even know when the letters get to the local residents. And to that point, the 500 lots, it belongs to all of us in this city and in the province. And obviously, not everyone reads the paper anymore. And different ways of enhanced notifications would allow more people to be aware of this proposal, and perhaps others have thoughts. I don't live right there. I live further away, but it's important to me as well. And this kind of increased engagement for encouraging attendance and participation is mentioned in the Local Government Resource Handbook, Guide to Municipal Government Act, and it has a lot of great points on encouraging attendance. And one of those is to ensure that a detailed information package is available well in advance. This is a handbook for counselors, and so I would really hope that perhaps after tonight, staff or council could go back and consider that. Even a draft version of the proposal and the planning staff report on the website would have been helpful. You could find it if you went all through back and forth on the city website through different planning board reports, but it's not easy to do. So thank you.
Andrea, I know it's a concern that you bring up every time, but we use as many portals as possible, social media. We have our website, charlottetownhall.ca, The Guardian, notices.
I appreciate that. I never did find it on the news section. There's news of street closures, but not of these meetings. And again, I checked that link where it says, go to look at the package for information here. And I was on that Monday night at 8 o'clock, and there was no information about tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we just take the mic down to you? Is that all right? So you don't have to stand up. We'll take, the mic's portable.
Can I get that phone?
You sure? Okay.
Just don't want to trip over my feet. I'm Beverly Benson. I live on 60 Rochford Street, so therefore I did not get any notice that this was happening. But I did happen to spot it in The Guardian last week, but it didn't give me much time to dig up any information regarding what zone it is or what everything's called and et cetera, because it was only in the paper 2 days, and then there was Saturday and Sunday, and Monday nobody answers the phone. So, as I live on Rochford Street, I have an interest and a very great concern of any amendments or variances or anything to Rochford Street and the surrounding areas. Recently, I was very happy to hear that the current council had spoken and decided there would be no changes made in the 500 area that would upset the preservation and heritage of the 500 area. I really, I read that someplace or heard it, and I was quite pleased with the fact that you were taking that stand. However, didn't last too long. Now I find that you are considering, or you've advertised, that there's a possibility of an amendment of your regulations to allow for a business, a commercial at 126 Rochford Street. This beautiful old home was built probably in the early 1930s because when I was a child, there was a family there named Burke, and they had twin girls who I played with all of the time. So I'm familiar with that house inside and out. I sincerely believe that this application amendment should be rejected. If not, a non-conforming use will be established and other residential homes will be requesting the same thing, and you'll have, because discretionary use boomerangs, and it will boomerang all across the street, up Fitzroy, up Kent, up Houston, and down into the park area. And I don't think that's what the council would like, or they have any think of it. Logically, I hope that they're thinking that way and that they will take that into consideration. Such an approval is most unfair to residents who have bought their properties, managed them well, obviously spent a lot of money maintaining them, because when you look at that block or around Euston or Brighton Road or up the side streets, Kenton and Fitzroy, they're all in good case. And they relied on the mayor and the city council to support them fairly and consider their needs. There's currently a traffic problem in all of Charlottetown, but so far it's kept in the main areas, and we don't want it in our areas. The provincial building has a big parking at the back. I wish everybody that works there would use it instead of the streets in front of my door and your door and everybody else's door, but that's the way it is. Finally, this amendment is a retrogressive one. It is opposite to the city needs as they continually talk about the need for more housing. This is just one house, but reduce or get rid of one home, replace that residence, and obviously starts a run on requests to change other homes all across. So I urge you to think very carefully on this and think about not only that block, but all the other blocks and streets around you and in the 500 area. In fact, I would like to see zoning. I don't know what the zonings are anymore. I call everything residential, but apparently that's not used anymore. But I would like you to think that you don't just look at big blocks or big areas. Look at each block. And in some of the blocks, even on Rochford Street, there's a dentist, and there's another one that I forget what it is, hairdresser. If they fold up, I would like that not to be grandfathered as another business. It should revert back to being the original home. And that could be done, and I'm sure that if you tried hard, you could find a way around and have a law that would, those people, once they're finished and gone, that they revert back to houses. No wonder we have very few houses in Charlottetown, because everything that was a nice house, instead of being converted or made into double or triple houses, it's become a restaurant or a dentist or a doctor's office or something else that really shouldn't be in the 500 area, but which it is. Thank you very much, and again, I request you to think this very carefully and to deny the request.
Just a summary of the process. An application was made, and it was sent to Planning Department. Planning Department made a recommendation to Planning Board. Planning Board made a recommendation to to have this public consultation. So we're just following the rules that are in the zoning development bylaw. The final decision on what happens to the application rests with the city council. So I appreciate your comments. And I know that you mentioned some of the properties. I know there's pride in place when I look at the Withrow's home, the Peters, Johnson's, Holman's. I know the amount of sweat equity and finances that went into those properties. So I appreciate your acknowledgement of them. Any more comments? Does council have any comments that they would like to get clarification or questions? That's the purpose of the public consultation.
Your worship, I would have just a clarification from David. Andrea had pointed out that the site-specific exemption would follow the home forever. So what other possible uses then could this home end up being if it was approved to be site-specific exemption, David?
You got that question, David?
I did, Your Worship, and through the chair, Councillor Yankoff, Deputy Mayor Yankoff, this particular application would specifically only allow for an office use to be a principal use on the property. That's it. Whereas an office use is otherwise permitted, but only as a home occupation, and there's a tight limitation to the square footage associated with that. So you can currently have an office use, but it could only be accessory to a main dwelling currently. So the applicants have asked for that to be expanded so that the entirety of the existing dwelling could be utilized for office space potentially. I'll just note for council's information, and this is in the zoning bylaw, the downtown neighborhood zone allows for a limited set of non-residential uses, actually explicitly written into the downtown neighborhood zone. It does allow for a convenience store as of right in that zone, and it refers back to the residential R3 zone, and there's a number of institutionally related uses under the R3 which are subsequently permitted under the downtown neighborhood zone as well. But I guess to answer the question that you posed directly, yes, this request would limit expansion of permitted uses to an office use only in addition to what is otherwise permitted as of right through the existing zoning.
And David, definitions in our zoning development bylaw, office means an establishment to accommodate professional, managerial, clerical services, consultant services, administrative needs of business, government, and other organizations, or the sale of services such as travel agents and insurance brokers. So definition is quite broad.
Through the chair, Your Worship, that you're correct. It can be interpreted quite broadly as to what could constitute an office use. However, the request specifically is for an office use bracket law office, and should council approve this request in the future, we could certainly apply conditions that provide additional limitation on what that permission actually means in this case. And I would leave that up to council to ponder that as an eventuality. So.
Councillor Bertard.
Just to quite thank Your Worship, is the current property occupied residential at the moment? I need to understand that.
I think, Mr. Gibson, can you answer that? I think the home is for sale, correct? And the sale is dependent, is hinged on what we're going to do.
It has, the home was built, to answer someone else's question, I will be quick, I know I talk a lot. If the home was built in 1906, actually for a lawyer, interestingly. It has been used, it's been in the Reeser family for 50 or so years. And Professor Reeser unfortunately died a number of years back, and the property has, I believe, been vacant since that time. And it has, and this is a really important point, the property has been on the market for sale for almost a year and a half. So I think it's important to note that, and I will speak quickly, important to note that because people are not lining up to buy this property for residential purposes. It's not like there's a high demand for this, for using it as it is, and also logistically, this property cannot realistically be used as multi-unit residential as well. So, single-family home, beautiful, beautiful old home. It's not necessarily what people are looking for a family home anyway, and it fits very well with the use that I have planned for it. At the moment, vacant, historically residential use. Oh, and sorry, one more very quick point, and David mentioned it there. The site-specific exemption is an addition to the current use. It's not a removal of it. It's not a change of use per se. And David or someone stop me if I have this wrong, but this is something which is added on so that it may be used as a law office, no other purpose apart from the existing residential uses and a law office use. If I should stop using it as a law office, it can continue to be used as a residential property. This property is not being removed from the residential field, as it were, residential pool. It's just an additional use permitted at this time. Thank you.
So, Mr. Gibson, just again to clarify,
Yes.
if it's defined as office, it's in our zoning development bylaw as a definition, and I just read off the definition, so it doesn't restrict it just to one use. That's what, David, could you clarify? Office is office.
Your worship, to clarify, we do have a definition for office use in the bylaw. However, through a hypothetical future approval, council could provide additional limitation on any future approval to dial that in. So it wouldn't be as broad as what is broadly permitted through that definition. So I'll just throw this out there. The intention here is for a law office, and it could be limited more specifically to that as a subset of that definition, should council desire through a potential future approval that be the case. And I'll just leave it at that. So,
if I'd understood your question correctly, Your Worship, I think you were suggesting or asking perhaps if it was to be essentially a conversion to exclusively office use, which then would continue. The point that I'm making, and David, maybe I have this wrong, that the office use is in addition. So yes, it can be permitted for office use, but that does not remove the residential use. It just adds to it, and the residential use continues. I could cease using it as an office and could and may well move into that as my retirement home without any need for any change from council on the zoning of the property.
Thank you. Darren, could I allow Ms. Withrow to speak, because she did get up to speak? Do you want to go up? We just want to allow everyone to speak to it, because this is an opportunity to get the feedback from the residents, the public, the proponent, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my name is Margaret Whitrow, and I live at 137 Rochford Street. And I just want to echo what other residents have been saying, and that is about the concern for the spot rezoning. We can say it's just for a law office, but there's always the fear down the road that there'll be another spot rezoning for something else, and the precedent will be set. So my vote would be to have it remain as residence.
Thank you, Margaret.
I'm sorry, I don't want to get into a match of sorts, but the issue of whether a property is listed for sale for a certain particular period of time in a free market, and that the only saving grace for a beautiful property is to be bought for commercial interests, is, in my humble opinion, hogwash. And perhaps the pricing of the property that has been on the market for such a period of time is not appropriate. That's my only comment.
Okay. So I think we can sum up. Our staff will come back with a recommendation to the planning board June 4th, is it, Donna? Anyways, it'll be in June. It'll be in June. Okay. I thank you for coming out this evening. Thank you to Mr. Gibson, the proponent. Thank you, David. I don't know if David's going to stay on, but if you wish to stay on to listen to the housekeeping amendments, you're more than welcome to. Do you want to just add that, Deputy?
Just if you wanted to submit any additional information, you have till tomorrow at noon, folks. Okay. Safe travels.
So you're throwing us all out?
No, Mrs. Benson, you could stay down there. You want some water, or do you want some pop? We got everything here, a cup of coffee.
Because I don't know what all this gibberish is.
Okay, look, we'll just, you know what, we'll just put the mic down right there so you can speak freely. No, we want to, can you take the mic out? Can we, just pull it out of there. So if you do wish to speak, Andrea can take the mic to you so you can sit there and, do you need a chair-sized podium? Okay, we're moving on to 4B, housekeeping amendments that pertain to the following sections of the zoning development bylaw. Donna Miller-Ayton, who is our manager of policy and heritage, will take us through it.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on March 12th of 2024, Council approved a request to amend the sections of the zoning and development bylaw, which we are referring to as housekeeping amendments.
So home occupations, if you look at the zoning development bylaw, it's page,
So the specific sections that we want to amend are Section 5.9, which refers to home occupations, Section 5.11, which refers to tourist accommodations on residential properties, Section 5.11.2, regulations for tourist accommodation, Section 5.11.3, types of tourist home and requirements to obtain provincial license. Section 19.1.1 and Section 20.1.1 to just add apartments as permitted zones in the residential 4A zone and 4B. Section 37.1, which is the port zone. Section 46, general provisions for parking table. Section 47.12.4, fascia signs table. Section 47.14, electronic signs table. And Section 47.3, prohibited signs, and to add and amend some of our definitions in Appendix A.
What do all those mean, and what are they all about?
Mrs. Spencer, I think she's going to, no, she's going to go through, Donna, I think you're going to go through each section.
Yep.
She's going through each section.
So in regards to section 5.9, tourist accommodations as a home occupation under section 5.9.3, we're removing that. And section 5.11, bed and breakfast and home occupations as types of tourist accommodations under section 5.11.1. So we're requiring tourist accommodations to be single detached dwellings only now, so we're removing that. And also, we're revising section 5.11.4 and replace it with 5.11.3 to revise and remove a home occupation as a type of tourist accommodation and to add a requirement to obtain provincial license. In section 19.1.1, these are permitted uses for apartments. However, apartment is not in the zoning and development bylaw at the moment, so we are amending the section from the top box to the bottom box to add apartments at 19.1.1. It's similar for the amendment that we're proposing for section 20.1.1, just to add apartment as it is in the permitted use. Section 37.1 refers to the port zone, so we want to include events hosting as a permitted use, and we would add that as 37.1.8. Section 47.3 refers to prohibited signs, and we are amending section 47.3 to add to include signs with obscene, offensive, discriminatory, or misleading content. And in regards to section 46, which is the general provisions for parking table, we are just going to rearrange the uses in alphabetical order for ease of reading, as shown from 2 on the screen. Section 47.12.4, fascia signs table. In the paragraph that is highlighted, it mentions that signs shall be erected on a maximum of 3 building walls in accordance to section 5.12.4a. However, there is no such section, and so we are amending that so that it is up to date and it is in reference to the correct section. This is going to be similar for section 47.14 electronic signs table, just to ensure that the section that it is referring to is correct. And then we will add new definitions to Appendix A for authority having jurisdiction, occupancy, residential occupancy, obscene content, discriminatory content, events hosting, and then revise the existing definitions that are already there for dwelling unit, heritage inn, long-term rental, short-term rental, and tourist home. And specifically for short-term rental, it is to bring the definition in line with what the province now has. And up to the end of work day today, we didn't get any objections or any comments regarding the proposed amendments to the bylaw.
Mrs. Benson or Andrea, did you, I know it's a lot of information.
I do, thank you. I've been following some of the discussion about electronic signs and
Yes.
moving signs, and I found it quite interesting. And actually, the handout you've given here doesn't seem to be complete with what's on the website, because it doesn't have the table for the signage, this handout. So I had one question, I had a few actually. I'm wondering what a moving sign is, and in your paragraph 5, it says something about on a legal non-conforming blank. It seems like there's a word missing in the revision, so I'm not quite sure what it's talking about.
Donna's searching that now.
Yep. Yeah, this isn't in the handout. So no, that page wasn't in the handout. maybe on the next page.
That one?
I didn't print it at home. It's a line that says, I think it's on paragraph 5, on a legal non-conforming something, and then it goes to the next thing. Maybe someone can look at that later. But I was also questioning, there's a comment about transitioning being a maximum of 0.25 seconds, and then it also says not blinking, so what's a blinking sign?
Repeat that?
What's a blinking sign? Because it says a transition, a maximum of 0.25 seconds. So that means, has to be,
Through you, Your Worship, I am a bit confused as to what you are referring to. I don't have that as one of the amendments that we are suggesting at this time.
it was something I got off the website. I read on the information on the website. I can go over it with you.
As part of tonight's package?
Yeah.
Okay.
It
was-
talks about,
So this would be pertinent to the package we have too as council. We'd have the same package, would we not? Same package. So is the chart there with the from and to? Is that in section 46?
it's not in the public handout.
No. We didn't get any of that.
So what, Jason, you're saying there's two different packages, one for the presentation, one for us?
So what normally happens, Your Worship, is that the package is put together based on a report, but the staff's presentation is not normally included in that package, but it does cover whatever is in that report. Not certain what the resident is speaking to.
And Donna, I know that with the housekeeping amendments, it's a lot of information, and you have to know that zoning development bylaw pretty well to make the correlations. Anyways, just,
Right, well, I guess I had a question wherever it is, there's a statement saying the transition for signs, electronic signs, I think, is a maximum of 0.25 seconds. So that means it has to be faster than that? So isn't that, I'm wondering what blinking is then if it's not that?
So I found the part that you're speaking about on the staff report that was part of the council package and also a part of the Planning and Heritage Committee package. But that's not a amendment that we're considering at the moment. But if it is something that you want to discuss or you want to bring to our attention, you can do so, and we can discuss that further.
All right, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Mrs. Benson, do you wish to? No, it's,
I haven't seen it before, but like, right off the bat, the first one, which is section 5.9.
yes,
Home occupation.
yes,
So the staff recommends that section tourist accommodation be replaced and updated as a home occupation.
correct.
What's the difference between a home occupation and whatever it is now?
Yeah, I think it's, Don,
A home occupation.
yeah, she's going to update it right now. Donna, can you provide clarification?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So currently in the zoning and development bylaw, tourist accommodations, which are more popular referred to as STRs, are considered as home occupations. So we are amending that part to remove tourist accommodations as a home occupation, as that is not in essence what STRs are.
Correct.
Home occupations and tourist occupations are one and the same thing.
Currently, that's how it's worded, but that's not in the true sense what it is, so that's why we are amending it.
Yes,
That's what it currently is?
Yeah.
And
yes.
so you're changing it to what?
So we'll remove tourist accommodations from the list of home occupations.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You remove section 5 and making it into to be single detached dwelling
Yeah.
only.
Short,
Okay,
Mrs. Benson, short-term rentals has to be your principal residence, and it's for staying overnight, as you know. Yeah, okay.
But, you know, now I see what she's done. You've just cut it all short.
Yeah. Modernize the language.
Those who've seen it before know. Section 511(2), maximum gross floor area replaced with tourist occupation by, replaced by section 511.
Actually. Councillor Twill, do you have a question to the manager?
Back to all the different sections that you referred to at the beginning.
Yep, it's.
Go back to that. So we're making amendments
Yeah.
to all these different sections of the zoning and development bylaw. I don't see anything there regarding shelters and youth homes, you know. I know I've been sending emails out to the planning department regarding shelters that are placed in neighborhoods, and wondering why these amendments are not forthcoming, and more specifically in terms of consultation with the affected neighborhoods. I think it's imperative, just as we had here tonight, with regard to the proposed spot zoning, that any one of these facilities that are going to be placed in a neighborhood, the residents first and foremost need to be consulted with. So my question is, why is that not here? Because, you know, I've sent numerous emails out to the planning department, as you know, and I think residents need to be engaged, they need to be involved, and they need to be informed, and they need to decide whether or not they want to approve. So that's my first question.
Okay, no, well, we're going to answer that, but I think what we're looking at right now is housekeeping amendments related to home occupation.
Well, this is-
No, just one second, we got a response coming. Donna, do you wish to respond, or the CAO?
Actually, Your Worship,
Okay, go ahead.
this is a public meeting tonight. This isn't a council meeting. We're
Yep.
here to ask questions specifically about the topics that are listed on the agenda, and we're here to hear public feedback specifically about the topics that are on the agenda. This question could be asked in a different council meeting or even at Planning and Heritage Board.
And there, again, is a committee, a board that is very open, Madam Chair. I know that you would welcome anyone to it. I believe we're dealing with these sections. Donna has prepared the information. We have Mrs. Benson here, a resident from that area, from Rochford Street, and Andrea Battison, and I think they have some questions they want to clarify about these amendments. So, any,
I'd like to finish, Mr. Mayor.
no, just let me finish. Excuse me. I'm not done.
I'd like to finish.
Yeah, you did speak, and what I'm going to say to you, you can come to the next planning board meeting, or the Standing Committee for Planning, Development, and Heritage to bring up these issues. And Deputy, I know you would have no problem inviting anyone to those committee meetings. We do have a meeting tomorrow. So we're going back to Donna to explain some of the other questions that pertain to what's here. Again, this is,
That's my question. That's my question, Mr.
what is the
Mayor.
question?
My question is, I've been sending emails off to
Yeah.
the planning department, and I'm wondering why my recommendations are not here for councils for consideration.
No, they'll
I've
be
been-
brought up. No, they'll be brought up at the committee.
I know it's planning. These
No.
are planning.
Public planning meeting.
This, excuse me, just let me finish.
It's not, no. This is what we're talking about here tonight, you know, tourist homes and apartments and all these other things. Well, what I've been bringing up is relevant to the zoning and development bylaw, and I'm trying to be proactive. I have been proactive, and I've sent these recommendations off to planning staff, and I'm wondering why those suggestions and those recommendations haven't been tabled here as part of the housekeeping amendments to the different sections of the zoning and development bylaw.
Okay. Okay,
I want to know why.
Councillor Twill, let's again come around to what the deputy has said. There's a planning development committee, standing committee tomorrow. Come to that meeting, bring up your issues. No, that's.
Why isn't it here?
We're
Why
dealing-
isn't it here?
I'm telling you, that's how we're dealing with it.
What?
Is right
I
here.
know, but I guess my point is, why weren't those suggestions and recommendations, why were they not part of this package?
Yep, you can find that out tomorrow.
Can I get, no, I'd like to
No,
answer
no,
tonight.
Councillor
Why
Twill.
can't I get an answer tonight,
You
Mr.
can
Mayor?
get, you can get it. Just one second. This is going tomorrow. The deputy has already invited you to come to the Planning, Development, Heritage Standing Committee meeting. Donna, can you go back to yours?
Can I just get an answer?
We did. It's not down here, and we're going to Donna. No, we're not answering that question. We're moving on. He can bring it up tomorrow at the Standing Committee for Planning, Development, and Heritage. Okay. Are there any more questions? Seeing none, hearing none. Andrea, could you, it's good? Okay. So again, any changes that we want to look at in the future, the Standing Committee for Planning, Development, and Heritage is always open to get suggestions from members of council, members of the public, and I appreciate anyone's input on what we do as a council and representing this city. So they will go to our planning board meeting on the 4th or first week in June. I have motion to adjourn. Motion moved by Councillor Matard, seconded by Councillor Beck. All those in favor? Thank you.